Hello and welcome to another episode of Upward Trajectory. Today I'm so excited to be joined by Amelia Mora Mars with Mom Connections. Thank you so much, Amelia, for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Yes, and we had talked a few weeks ago and I kind of heard your backstory and how you came about doing what you're doing now. And I was really excited to have you on the show because I think so many people have these kind of relationships earlier in life and they just don't know how to kind of rebound and get on with things. And they may think that, everything was okay when it really should have been different. So I wanted to have you on to address that. And I was hoping you might be able to go back for our listeners and kind of share some of the things we talked about in that you dealt with in your earlier life.
Sounds great. So I am one of four children. My parents are from Costa Rica. And my mom was very emotionally, very, very young, like a little girl in a lot of ways. And she suffered with anxiety and depression and a lot of mood. And so, quite frankly, I was afraid of her. And even though I wasn't the firstborn, I was the secondborn, I took that role of protecting us from her because we didn't know what we were going to get. And so, it was a life of walking on eggshells, being nice, quiet little girl. So the two things that I really worked on as a child was to keep the house clean. And so I would tell my siblings, okay, you take the bathroom, I'll take the kitchen. I put the music on to motivate them. I would do anything to keep us safe. And so that became my role is to keep the siblings safe. So it was keeping the house quiet also because she was very agitated. And I think because she slept a lot to get away from the depression, she wanted quiet. And I think too, the noise, even though we were quiet little girls, she was very easily triggered. And so that became my upbringing. That became my way of being, of people pleasing, of kind of scanning the room, like, are people safe here? Holding my voice back, being very cautious, being a people pleaser, and excelling in academics or anything just to keep me safe, busy, and have some kind of accolade somewhere because I was getting it more at school or by my grades. So it becomes a way of living until you realize, till you get a little older and you start to look around and you think, okay, wait, maybe something's not right here. And I, as a young girl, wanted to become a therapist. You do your little report in junior high school, and I wanted to be a therapist, a psychologist. You have to study, or you have to write about the report, whether, where you're going to go to school and how many years on that kind of thing. And one of the things I noticed was that you have to have your own therapy. And I thought, no, I don't want to talk about my childhood. I did everything. I stayed busy. I, kept my head in books to avoid my childhood. But then when I got older as a young mom, I have a set of identical girls. So I have 10 children. I didn't mention that. I have 10
Yes,
children.
you did.
I have 6 daughters and I have 4 boys, and they're from 30 to 15. So I had the 10 kids in 15 years. My husband and I
Wow.
were married 42 years. And I just kind of rocked them out. And so my twins, I had little identical girls, and they were in kindergarten. And they used to go to a little girl's house and they would play. And the little girl became sick. And the mom was trying to figure out what was wrong with this little girl. She wasn't healing. And they discovered that she had leukemia.
Oh.
And I remember hearing that. And I remember being like, that is really sad intellectually. But I couldn't feel it.
Oh.
It was like, and I realized, I thought, oh, it scared me. It scared me that I'm a mom and there's this little girl who's sick and I can't feel it. I don't have empathy. And that was one of the things that really scared me. And I thought, okay, I can either stay this way because it has served me. It has self-protected me. It's kept me from not feeling, not remembering, shutting things out. Or I can face it and be brave and learn to feel and learn to laugh and cry and all the emotions. And I remember it being like a terrifying thing, like, I want that, but I'm afraid of that because I've avoided it my whole life.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's what I did. I decided to go to therapy myself and work on myself. I had read all kinds of books, and I knew, okay, there's one thing I'm missing, and it's the one thing I need, and that's human connection. You know, it's easy to pick up a book and just read it, but it's like I was avoiding people. I was avoiding intimacy. I was avoiding closeness. I was avoiding trust. And that's what I needed. So I did that. And in the process, I thought, you know what? I'm ready. You know, I've done my work, and now I could revisit going back to school and becoming a therapist. And when I went to school, I chose the specialization of attachment because I knew that's where I lacked having the attachment. And so that's where my work began. And they're very specifically now, I work with mothers and teenage girls in my practice here, but then I coach moms to help them to break the cycle and to heal their hearts. And to these women long to feel close to their daughters, and they long to heal their hearts. So to prioritize themselves and reclaim their lives, and you know, that self-compassion, and learn how to have boundaries, to establish them and enforce them, to protect themselves from people who would hurt them, you know, in a healthy way, not you know, the brick wall, but having healthy boundaries and learning to feel. And so that became my work, to help women do the work that I did so that they can live and feel, heal themselves, which changes their relationship with their children and then ultimately generations. So
Yeah, wow. It's so profound when you say heal and feel, because you went so many years without being able to feel and feel that connection. And it's just, you know, such an integral part of human, you know, need to have human connection. Wow, how profound is that, though, that you came to that realization and you were able to heal yourself, and now you're healing others.
yes,
So
yes.
I wanted to ask you, once you realized this, is this kind of a light bulb that said, oh my gosh, I need to do this for other people? Or did it kind of slowly transition into that?
I think it was always what I wanted to do, was to work with mothers. But then as I was working with teenage girls, I thought they are the future mothers. And so if I can start working them at a younger age and they have the light bulb moments earlier on, then perhaps their trajectory would be very different. Because I feel like with mothers, we're like a bridge. We're the bridge to our mothers and then to our daughters, you know. And so sometimes their moms aren't doing the work. So if the girl starts to understand it a little bit, then she can kind of be prepared for it and do it very differently.
Okay, great. You had mentioned that you were a people pleaser as a child. Do you think that that is a common trait for girls who don't feel the type of connection that they need to with their mother figure?
Definitely. I feel like there's two extremes, two ends of the continuum. You have your avoidant person like me. I was actually both. I would say that I was anxious and avoidant, but you have that person who's like, has trust issues, who looks together on the outside. They present as having it all together. They have trouble with intimacy and disclosing and feeling close. And when people get close, they don't want it. They might be very efficient, self-sufficient, independent, want to do things on their own. And then on the other hand, you have someone who might be a rescuer, and a rescuer, but slash waiting for their prince to come in, and maybe anxious and lack of self-esteem and clingy and needy and high maintenance and just more anxious. So you have two ends, but I would say definitely people pleasing. I might present a little bit different. For one, it might be like the accolades. You know, they really work hard to be noticed, because they're, you know, every child wants to be seen and soothed and feel safe and secure. And if you
Yes.
don't feel those things, you're going to create some kind of a facade to try to get those needs met. So whether it's through work or just clinging and what can I do? You know, would you like fries with that Coke? What would you like? And just this constant serving. So yeah, it's very prevalent.
Wow. And I know this is going to resonate with a lot of people. So what would you suggest in terms of first steps if you know, realize, oh my goodness, this might be me? What can I do next?
Well, I feel like when I mentioned the what I was avoiding, the connection, you know, we are hurt in relationships, so we need to heal in relationships. And it's a risk. And you don't just want to trust anybody. You want, you know, people around you that are safe, emotionally safe. So I would say, it's kind of like if you're at a circus and there's a trapeze, you're not going to let go of one until you have the other. It's too scary. You're going to drop, So when you're trying something new, and especially like we'll talk about people pleasing, and you're going to establish boundaries and say no, the reason people don't do that is because they're afraid of rejection. They're afraid you're not going to like me, you're not going to love me, and worse, you're going to abandon me. So that's scary stuff. You don't want to.
Fear driven.
Absolutely.
Very much fear driven.
Yeah. And so you don't want to do that without having a support team that's going to support you and help you along the way. But there's a lot of self-compassion that needs to happen, because a lot of women, myself included, struggle with perfectionism, because you want to keep everything, you don't want to give anybody any clues that perhaps I'm, behind the curtain, I'm a mess,
Yes. It's so unrealistic. There is no such thing.
No, it doesn't exist. So, self-compassion is just really, really important. But again, in the context of, of a community, my office here, I call it the nest. And because I want it to be a place of being nurtured and empowered and having self-compassion. Over time, there's transformation. So it does take time, but I feel like the kind of struggles we're describing here are that the person is very critical in their head.
Self-critical. Yes.
Yeah, so self-critical. So there's just all these pieces of harshness, of a judgment, of being critical, not having boundaries. And if you don't have boundaries, what happens is all that's negative keeps coming in. Boundaries are to protect us from the bad coming in. But if you don't have boundaries, you have the bad in, and the good that's out there can't get in. So it's backwards, And so, but all those things in the context of a relationship is just so important.
Wow. I love all these analogies that you're laying out there. So important. So first steps is you have to realize that you need the self-care. You need to nurture yourself. You need to learn to forgive and love yourself and have that support system. And then is it time to seek help and seek therapy, or someone like you as a next step?
Yeah, I would say that not everybody needs therapy, but everybody needs some kind of a coach or a mentor. I know for me, there was, because, I was afraid of people. And so there was this woman, she was probably 70 or something like that. And I would go to her house and she would teach me how to cook. And we just spent time talking. And that was just kind of like my first person. Just to build a relationship. So, having someone guide you so that you're not reinventing the wheel, someone who has been there, done that, understands it, and can take you through the different steps of the self-compassion and boundaries and looking at perfectionism and how do I communicate not only to others, but to myself, and then to become an adult, because I'm 55, but if I'm not, I might have parts of me that are very young. If I, like the holidays, people like regress, like they step into their parents' house and they become 12 again. Right. So the goal in adulthood is not to have one up, one down relationships. It's to be equal and to be integrated, the good, the bad, the ugly, the masculine, the feminine parts, all the different parts of us that come together in a place where you're more solid. I always tell my people, it's kind of like Swiss cheese. You come in here with all these little holes and we want to fill them up. We want to fill them up, and it takes time. But yeah, getting a person to feel solid, whole, strong. And I always use the analogy. It's like if you're driving a car, who's driving the car? Are you driving the car of your life? Are you in the passenger seat? Are you in the back seat, or are you in the trunk? There's a difference, and having them to understand that you can't live life if you don't own your life. You're living someone else's life, and that's not what we're designed to do. We're here to live our life. And moving from the seat to the passenger, anything but get in the driver's seat of your life.
Well, I think a lot of women may think they're in the driver's seat because you speak of perfectionism, and specifically like this false sense of I have control over everything. And when in reality, you really don't, but it's that fear that's driving it. It's not really the control that you think that you have.
Absolutely. It's absolutely an illusion, isn't it?
It is. And it's just when you finally come to that realization that control is such an illusion, then you can start, living again and coming out of that.
Yes. I think one of the good tests is like distress tolerance. Like how much distress, how much ambiguity, how much uncertainty can I handle and still be okay and
Yes,
not fall
yes.
apart, not freak out.
And
And
if
so,
it's 5 minutes, you know that there's a problem because your level is already very high.
and in this today's world, there is a lot of it. And are
There
you
is.
or are you falling apart?
Yes, one of my recent interviews, we talked about just you need to have me time. You need to schedule it into your day, and you need to have that self-care, self-love time where it's just you recharge your batteries and you refuel yourself. And
Yes,
then you can take care of the other people.
absolutely. That's just so important to me. It's like being a car on the road. If you run out of gas, you need to fill it up, and a lot of times the fuel comes from other people. And so I was just for lunch, I was with my cousin and I just love him. I just love to be able to spend time with him and whatever the it is, but absolutely spending time either with yourself or reading a book or self growth. I feel like, especially now that school's starting, moms have and fathers, parents have such an expectation that their children grow. And yet a lot of women are not growing. They're not growing and evolving and learning and becoming, and then
And living.
and living. Yeah. And as the kids get older and they start to see, oh, the kids are going to leave the house, they start to freak out. And now's the time. Now is the time to have hobbies. They say that like between the ages of 7 and 11 is when you can really take a look back at your life and see what were the things that I really, really loved. And I remember being probably about 7, and across the street lived this single mom, and she had 5 daughters. And the youngest daughter and I decided that in the morning we were going to get up and we were going to talk at the end of my driveway. So we're just right across the street. So I had my little white wooden chair, and I brought her a little chair, and I had an orange and she had an orange, and we just shared our oranges and we talked. And we had so much fun. It's like, let's do it tomorrow. Okay.
Aww.
We got our chair. We did it again. Let's do it tomorrow. And we did it again. And eventually she stopped coming. But I realize now that that need for communication and communion with another woman and talking and sharing was so important. The other thing we did was we had kind of an unusual cul-de-sac where there were houses in the middle and on the outside, kind of like a donut.
Okay.
And we had our little radio, and we would walk around. We would just walk with our little radio singing songs. And I still love music. So communication for me, sharing with another woman, eating oranges or sharing some kind of food, listening to music, those are all pieces that were important to me then, are important to me now. And I just really encourage women, pay attention to every one of your senses. What do you love to smell and taste and feel and touch? And where do you love to be? And then go do it. Go include those parts in your life. Live.
That is great advice. I love that. Pay attention to your senses now and back when you were young and find your path to happiness. That's fantastic. Well, I have absolutely loved having you on, Amelia, and I know our viewers have got to have learned so much in just your wisdom that you shared. And I'm curious if they would like to reach out to you or find out more about what you do and your services to women. How would they reach you?
Well, if they want to be part of a group of, if they struggle in this area and they're a woman that wants to break the cycle, I have a group. It's Mom Connections Remothering Tribe. So it's Mom Connections and then RE-Mothering Tribe.
Okay.
And there I do workshops and talking and lives and that kind of thing. And then my website is www.momconnections.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on and for sharing. And I've learned, and I'm sure everyone else has as well. We love to have you on. So thank you so much, Amelia.
Jennifer, have a great day.
Thanks so much. And please join us for another episode of Upward Trajectory soon. Thanks and take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Are you still there?